Hello, here's my summary from Sunday the 5th of June 2016. This is completely unofficial, it's all my own thoughts on what's been said, and it's not endorsed by the church leadership. It's just my own thoughts and opinions, not necessarily shared by those of the church. So today's title is Transparent Living, and it's part of our Fruitful Living series. We have two readings. First one's from Ephesians 5 verses 8 to 21, and within that it talks about us as walking as children of the light of Christ, how he's taken us from darkness into the light, and that we're to sing and make music in our hearts to the Lord. Our second reading is from Matthew 7 verses 16 to 23, and it talks about a tree and its fruit, how if you've got good fruit, it's come from a good tree. You don't get good fruit from a bad tree. And the parallel with that is what it's actually talking about is people having a godly character. If you're connected with God, you should have a more godly character than if you weren't connected with God. And we're going to be talking about being transparent. And there are some people who the Bible quotes as being like wolves in sheep clothing, false prophets. They claim to be of God, they claim to be teachers giving a message from God, but actually their character is not godly and they're pretending to be something they're not. So our preacher was Howard, and mentioned about the Fruitful Living series and how that you might sum it up as Jesus wants us to live lives to the full, live our lives in abundance till they overflow. Of course, what that means to God's people is different to what it would mean of people who are not God's people. And transparency, transparent living, it's that people can see who we truly are. Who we say we are is actually what we are. So we had in the reading that Jesus invites us to move from darkness into the light, and as I mentioned about false prophets, there may be people coming in the church preaching, but really they're not who they claim to be. They may claim to be of God. So at times maybe we all wear masks, but the question is, are we trying to deceive by using masks to hide who we truly are? Have we got some bad motives there? But also there can be self-delusion. When we think we're something we're not, people may think that they're Christians because they're born in a certain country, or because as a child they were baptized, where actually when we meet with Jesus after we've died, he will say whether we were people who knew him. So we need to not self-deceive ourselves about that. When we see him face to face, whether we're Christians or not is based upon whether we know Jesus. And many people maybe would claim to know someone. I might claim to know someone because I'm trying to, by association with that person, make myself look more important, but it could be that I don't know that person at all, or I've met them once, or I've seen them at a distance. I don't really know them. So our life is a lot about choices, and we're called to make fruitful choices when it comes to, say, food and being healthy. We could think of it like the tree. You get healthy fruit from a good tree, and we get a healthy body from good food. So if we're putting into ourselves junk food, we've chosen that, then the consequences of that are that we've made that choice is the lack of health that comes from it. And Jesus tells us that we're to build our lives on the rock. We're to be like the guy who takes the hard way, takes the difficult way, builds his life on the rock and not on the sand, so when the storms of life come, doesn't get washed away. We're called to live as people of light. Our lives, our choices we make should be those that demonstrate that we're people following God. Okay, so that's the end of the summary. I would encourage you to go to the church website. I'll put a link in it. If you look in the description of this video, I'll put a link into the church website. From that you'll be able to listen to the whole sermon if you didn't make it to church on Sunday, and also look at the sound notes, see what you think about that. This coming weekend is our village picnic, so we're having an 8 AM service at church, and then we're having one later on the day at the recreation ground. So do try to come to that next week. Thank you very much.